Hello everyone, Amod here from the Target Common YouTube channel, and in this video we are going to learn about an important method provided by Selenium WebDriver called getAttribute. So the getAttribute method is used to fetch the value of the attribute assigned to the HTML element. Attributes in HTML elements provide additional information about the element and are written as name value pair within the element's opening tag. Let's understand with the example. If we inspect this email text box, then you can see it has been created using the input tag, and within the opening input tag we have multiple attributes here like form control name, the value is email, then we have id, the value is email, we have data hyphen test, again we have the value email, similarly we have type, placeholder, etc. So form control name or id, these are keys, and whatever we have after equal to, that is the value. These attributes have some special meaning. For example, ID. We can manipulate this wave element using the JavaScript using this ID. Or type equal to text. It says that this is a text box. We have another attribute placeholder and the value is your email. So you can see this value is coming on the text box. If you change this value, then whatever you see on the UI, it will be changed. So this attribute used to show the information about the text box, like what kind of value it is expecting. We might have some attributes which has no value. I have one HTML page here, and if I open this page into Chrome and inspect any of the element like text box, then you can see we have some attributes which has no value like required autofocus. So these attributes does not require any value, but by mentioning these attributes it will do its work. For example, I am using the required attribute. This means that we cannot skip this wave element. We must need to enter some value to it. Similarly, if you inspect this checkbox, then we can see it has an attribute disabled and checked. If the checkbox is checked, then we can use this attribute, and you can see that this checkbox is disabled. So I'm using the disabled attribute to do that. So that is possible that we might have some attribute which has no value. We might also have some attributes where we don't have the value initially, but when you perform any action on that web element, the value of that attribute will be updated. For example, this input tag has an attribute called value. So this value attribute will store the value whatever we type in this text box. Since we have not typed anything, so the value of this value attribute is nothing. But when you perform the typing, it will store that value. So using the get attribute method, we can fetch the value of these attributes. Now you might be thinking, what get attribute will fetch when there is no value to the attribute? These concepts we will cover now. Let's understand the use cases where we can use this method. Suppose you want to verify the placeholder value for this text box. Then you need to use the get attribute method to fetch the value of this placeholder attribute and assert it with the expected value. Similarly, if you want to assert that this particular wave element is a text box, then you can use the get attribute method for this type, and you can assert the value with the text. Similarly, if you want to fetch the value or whatever you have typed in the text box and you want to assert whether it has been typed or not, then you can use the get attribute with the value attribute, and you can assert with the expected value. Another use case, if you want to see each checkbox is checked and disabled, then also you can call the get attribute method to see whether this particular element has these attributes or not. So we have multiple use cases where we need to use this get attribute method. Now let's see some examples. So I have already basic setup done where I am launching the Chrome browser, and I'm going to load my application URL. So let's start with the basic example. I'm going to fetch the value of placeholder attribute of this input element, and this has an ID, so I'm going to use this ID to find this element. So Chrome diver dot find element by dot ID email, and now we can directly call the get attribute method because it is coming from wave element interface. So you can see this get attribute method is taking string parameter, which is the attribute name, and it will return you a string value. So let's call get attribute, and the attribute name is placeholder. I'm going to store into a string variable, and let me simply print the attribute value. And also I'm going to close the browser. Let me run this program, and we should see the value of placeholder in the console. So you can see your email is the value of the placeholder. which is as expected. Now let's see the value of attribute value. This has no value initially, but the value will be updated once we perform the typing. So let's cover both the scenarios. I'll copy this line and I will use the sysout directly, paste the value, and here instead of placeholder, the attribute name will be value. So this I am doing before performing typing. Now I am going to perform typing. So use the send cage and use some value hamut@gmail.com, and let's copy paste the same line after typing. So let's see what is the value of the attribute value before typing and after typing. Let me quickly run it, but we are making some mistakes, so let me just comment these lines and run the program. It's not closing because we have not used the quit method. That's fine. And you can see first it has written empty. We don't have the value. But after typing, we see the value of the attribute value. Now let's try to fetch the value of the attribute which has no value, like required or autofocus. So let me replace the URL with the HTML page I have. So I'm going to use the input tag name as the locator. So Chrome driver dot find element by dot tag name and use the tag name as input and call the get attribute method and pass the attribute name as required. Let me print it directly. So any guess what it is going to print? Let me run it. I will add the quit method and it is good to run now. So in the console you can see it in returning true. Any attribute which has some special meaning or gives some special control to the web element, if you use the get attribute method on those attributes, then you are going to get the boolean value true. That means this particular input wave element contains required attribute. That's why it is giving you true. But what will happen if it is not present? For example, we don't have any attribute called read only for this input text box. Let me call read only with the get attribute. Then what it is going to return false. Let me run and show you. So you can see it is returning you null. It is not going to return you false because earlier also it returned true, but that is not the boolean value. That is the string value only. But if the attribute is present, then it is going to return you true, otherwise null value, because null is the default value of the string. But remember what happens in the case of value attribute? We have the value attribute, but we don't have any value. So it returns you empty. And there's difference between empty and null. Similarly, you can try to fetch the attribute value of all these web elements. This HTML page you can find in my GitHub project. So that's all in this video. If you have any doubt, please comment on this video. If you really like my videos, please like, comment, subscribe and share with others. Thank you everyone.